Chapter 2. The soul is of the essence of the Lord. No matter what our station in life may be, we are always restless. In the midst of plenty, we are still poor. We invariably feel the lack of something. Even in our happiest moments, we miss something. This feeling of missing something is the inclination of our soul towards its Lord, for our soul is of the essence of the Lord. So long as it is separated from its source, it can never be at peace. True bliss results only when it rejoins its source. When the soul separated from the Lord, it was caught in the net of Maya, illusion, and became a slave to the mind. Maya has many forms, and the negative power has a limitless army at its beck and call. The miracles of the mind are truly legion. Mind and Maya have completely overwhelmed the soul, and whatever actions are performed under their influence, the soul has to go through the consequences. For this world is a vast field of action. Whatever one sows, one must inevitably reap. In effect, the soul is entangled in the web that it spins itself under the influence of the mind and the senses. Neither good nor bad actions can bring about its escape. In whatever kind of life it is placed, it suffers. Its condition is no better than that of a wife who is separated from her husband. You may provide her with all the comforts that wealth can buy, but she will still remain grief-stricken and distressed. She will be altogether inconsolable. Her sorrowing can end only when she reaches the feet of her husband, when she wins him over and makes him her own. The soul likewise continues to suffer until it meets with its Lord. Only then does it escape from the recurring cycle of birth and rebirth. The soul's Lord is the one God, who was, who is, and who ever will be. Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, and Christians all owe allegiance to him. He is the one God for all humanity. He is the one God who rules over all the continents and all the seas. The Lord has no form, no color, no caste, and no creed. In like manner, the soul, a particle of the Lord, has none of these entanglements. They are all attributes of the body, which is a garment of the soul, but the attributes are discarded after each life. The body cannot and does not travel to destinations beyond. It is either buried in the earth or is consigned to fire. It is our deeds, our love and devotion to the Lord, our conduct while on the earth plane that matter to the Lord, that enable us to realize him. The one Lord has created us all. He has made us alike. He has given us similar organs. If someone despises another, he despises the Creator, the God of us all. We forget that the Creator resides within us. The human body is the only true temple, the only true mosque, the only true church where the Lord can be found. The human body does not consist merely of flesh, bones, and blood. It is the repository of wondrous treasures of the rarest gems and diamonds. Above all, it is the house in which the Lord resides. If there is any laboratory where we can successfully carry out research to discover him, it is the human body. It is the microcosm of the body that contains the macrocosm. It is this pot of clay that carries within itself the supreme being. It is this pitcher that contains the ocean. Therefore, the utmost care and attention must be given to the human body in order to find out its secret, to discover its mystery, to know its true nature and destiny. The Lord himself resides in this fragile piece of parchment, this transient body. He is not far away. All saints have unequivocally told us that the Lord, whom we seek in hills and dales, in mosques and temples, on mountain tops and beyond the skies, in rites and rituals, in holy baths and pilgrimages, in recitals and penances, is part of our very body. He is nearer to us than our hands and feet. Jesus Christ says, "The kingdom of God is within you." Tulsi Sahib asserts, "Why do you wander afar in search of God? The way to him lies through the royal vein." Similarly, Paltu Sahib says, "Why are you constantly calling to the Lord outside? He dwells within the inner recesses of your own heart." It is for this reason that Hindus call the human body Nar Narayani Deh, a body that God has fashioned, where he himself is seated and where alone he can be found. Similarly, Sikhs call this body Har Mandir, the temple of the Lord. Guru Amar Das says, "This body is the temple of the Lord in which the jewel of spiritual wisdom is revealed." How sad it is that we do not search for God in the shrine that he himself fashioned for himself to live in, but go instead to temples, mosques, and churches that we build out of brick and mortar. If but one brick is dislodged in these man-made temples, we may fight and kill thousands of God's own shrines. One person despises another, but loves brick and mortar. When we enter a man-made temple, however evil we may be, for the duration of our stay within the temple, we become pious. No evil thoughts cross our minds. How clean and well cared for we keep them. But in God's temple, how impious and evil do we become, and how dirty and polluted do we keep it? If we truly long for the Lord, if our search for him is genuine, if we really thirst for him, we cannot but enter the shrine of our own body and locate him there. The question arises, however, that if the Lord resides within us, how is it that we do not perceive him? When we look within, we see nothing but darkness. Yet saints maintain that the Lord is present in every leaf, in every particle, nay, everywhere. In some he is manifest, in others he is hidden. Where he is hidden, he can be made manifest by resorting to the company of saints, who will connect our soul current with the divine melody that resounds at the eye center in all human beings. He is hidden because of the veil of our mind, whose ceaseless thoughts constantly disturb the surface in which he could be reflected. The never-ending thoughts are our ego, our self, and our I-ness. Unless they stop, no reflection of the Lord can be seen. Give up your selfhood and so obtain your husband Lord is the remedy suggested by all God-men. Conquer your own mind and conquer the world, says Guru Nanak in the Japji. Footnote, the opening section of the Adi Granth. End footnote. These thoughts reflect our preoccupation with our family and children, our wealth and possessions, our honor and glory. Our mind makes us constantly dance to its own tune. It is in ceaseless motion. It continually jumps from one subject to another. All this has to cease. The surface must become perfectly calm. The water must become crystal clear before we can discover the Lord. This can only happen when the mind is completely subdued. We therefore have to study its nature. We find it is fond of pleasure, but no one pleasure can hold it for all time. As soon as it comes across a more interesting or fascinating one, it leaves the former and runs after the latter. It does not submit to forcible discipline. This may quiet it for a certain period of time, but the moment the discipline is relaxed, the mind begins to dance about again. The greater the force applied to restrain it, the more violent is the manner in which it reacts and rebounds. Running away from the world is not a permanent method of escaping from its continual activity, because it will follow you wherever you are. The mind is an insidious enemy. It lives within your own body. How can you get rid of it by running from one place to another? The only way to overcome this enemy is to turn it into a friend and to deprive it of its fangs, which are full of venom. This can happen only when the mind gets something vastly superior to those things which it has in this world of shadow shapes. Saints tell us that this vastly superior something is the divine melody that resounds in each one of us at the third eye. Once the mind gets attached to this voice of God, it forever turns away from the world and its objects. The sweetness of this word makes everything else seem insipid or bitter. Compared with its enchantment, everything else seems pale. The possession of diamonds naturally causes one to lose interest in colored shells. The world ceases to be an attraction, and the mind turns to God. It is the word alone that can subdue the mind. Nothing else can accomplish this. Actually, one can attain salvation even while living if one gets rid of the ego. But the only way to rid ourselves of this ego is to come in touch with the divine music. The secret of this word, this voice of God, is in the keeping of the saints, and they alone can tell us how to get this priceless wealth, how to gain this inheritance that is waiting for us, and how to become a king of kings instead of the beggars we are now. Our mind is quick to take on the attributes of the company it keeps. In evil company, it turns evil. In the company of the vicious, it becomes vicious. In the company of the noble, it is ennobled. In the company of the virtuous, it becomes virtuous. It invariably takes on the color of the company it keeps. It is dyed in the hue of its associations. When we have the company of saints and God-men, we lose interest in the show of the world and acquire love for the Lord. Sinners turn into saints, the wicked become virtuous, the avaricious become contented. It is for this reason that the company of saints is so greatly valued and praised. Kabir Sahib says that one instant of a saint's company burns away millions of our sins. A Muslim mystic similarly declares that the company of a saint for a single minute is of more value than 100 years of worship, according to the dictates of the mind and intellect. What do the saints teach? They all tell us to withdraw our body consciousness to the eye focus and there contact the ever-resounding music of the word or logos. This is the word that can neither be written, nor read, nor spoken. It is the word that can be heard without ears, seen without eyes, touched without hands, and reached without feet. It is God's own voice, which is ceaselessly calling us back home. It emanates from the house of the Lord, and its harmonies resound in all human beings behind the eyes. When we attach our attention to it, we travel inward and upward and reach its source. Our religious scriptures and holy books all sing its praises, eulogize its powers, point out the place where it can be found, and indicate the path that leads to it. But they in themselves do not contain it. It is only when we put into practice what is stated in these books, only when we follow the path delineated there, only when we experience the obstacles in the way and overcome them, that we reach our destination, that we become one with God, that we gain our freedom from the wheel of transmigration and its attendant woe and misery. The scriptures are meant to create in us thirst for the Lord, but merely reading them cannot quench that thirst, because this can happen only when we drink the water of realization. The holy books help to cleanse us, but after we are cleansed, we must have something to fill the vessel. This something is the elixir of the Word, which must enter every pore of our body and drive out the fetid matter that has lain there life after life. Theoretical knowledge of a subject can never take the place of experience, and experience is necessary for self-realization. Written music cannot entertain us unless it is played, nor can the description of a perfume delight our senses. We must smell the perfume itself. The written recipes of the most delicious dishes can never satisfy our hunger, nor, likewise, can the theory of God lead us to God-realization. Our spiritual journey begins at the soles of our feet and ends at the top of our head. In other words, we have to withdraw our consciousness right from the soles of our feet and take it to the top of our head. This is the real pilgrimage, the real Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. We have to collect the consciousness in the arch of the Kaaba, which is really our forehead, and then connect it with the Kalma, the word or logos. Footnote: Kaaba, a small stone building in the court of the great mosque in Mecca, the focal point of the Hajj. End footnote. Only then do we go beyond the domain of matter and mind, sever the connection between the mind and the soul, and take both of them back to their respective sources, the former to Triquity, the second inner region, and the latter to Sachkhand, the fifth and highest inner region. The main difficulty with us is that we become so interested in the world and its objects that our mind rides on one wave after another and is never still. It goes everywhere, save to its own source, and unless it does so, it can never reach its home nor loosen its hold on the soul, which is bound to it hand and foot. All our energies are dissipated in the outer world, while our home lies within. Unless, therefore, we reorient our way of life in thought, word, and deed, unless we turn inward, unless we become introverted, we can never find our original home nor realize our forgotten glory. By our own power, however, we cannot accomplish this. We are utterly helpless as the senses, the mind's handmaidens, drive us mercilessly on. Only when the mind meets a saint and he reveals the secret of withdrawal from the 9 portals of the body and puts it in contact with the dynamo of the word, do we begin to travel inward and upward. Contact with this immanent power, which created the universe and now sustains it, is absolutely essential for weaning the mind away from its present interest in the world and turning it toward God. At present, it is completely enchanted by the world and its objects. They fill its entire horizon. Its every pore is full to the brim with sense pleasures. It is saturated with the poisons of lust, greed, anger, attachment, and egotism. When the mind comes within the magnetic field of the word, it is wholly transformed. It undergoes a complete metamorphosis. The sense pleasures lose all charm and potency. They become colorless and tasteless. The deadly poisons flow out, and their place is taken by the ambrosial nectar. The elephantine mind becomes fully controlled and completely docile. From being a treacherous foe, it turns into a faithful ally. It begins to realize that its own redemption depends upon befriending the soul and working with it, rather than against it. It then gives up all its cunning and wiliness. It stops all its wanderings. It becomes utterly quiet. Attachment to the word brings about detachment from the world and its forms. The fast color of the word completely wipes out the false color of the world. This voice of God is the heritage of all humanity. It lies within the human frame. To hear it within is the real pilgrimage, the real worship of God, the real Hajj of the Muslims. This priceless treasure lies latent in all of us, just as fire is latent in wood. But it is only when we know the correct technique that we succeed in producing fire, discovering the word. The ability to learn is present in all human beings, but it is awakened only when we go to teachers, faithfully carry out their directions, and burn the midnight oil. Then only do we become learned. Similarly, we must go to the teachers of spiritual science to learn how to enter within and where to search before we can find the treasure trove of the word. Egotism is a dread disease. It spares no one. Prince and pauper, rich and poor, high and low are in its vicious grip. Egotism preys upon everyone. It is because of egotism that we do not see the reality within, that we regard the transient and the fleeting as real and lasting, that we continually pursue the mirages of this world, that we waste the precious gift of human life in chasing shadows, in traveling around the periphery and never finding the center. Egotism dies only when one comes into contact with the word hidden within. Saints alone deal in the merchandise of the word. They alone know its value, its mystery, its uniqueness, and its unrivaled power. They alone can lead us to it. So long as this does not happen, all our recitals and penances, our visits to temples and mosques, our running to forests and mountain caves, our giving of alms and charity, our intellect and learning bear little fruit. On the other hand, they actually make our load heavier, our egotism stronger, and make us tread the path of birth and death over and over again. The human form is granted to us for gathering the wealth of Nam, the word, for this alone is ours here and beyond, the one treasure that can neither be stolen nor burnt nor washed away. The word is our only true friend that stands by our side in rain and sunshine, in adversity and prosperity, in felicity and grief. Our relations and friends, our palaces and possessions, our honor and glory are all shed the moment that the angels of death bear us away. Saints therefore enjoin that in this world, the one thing that you must strive for, that you must gather, that you must accumulate, is the wealth of the Word, Nam or Logos. If you do not do this, you cannot but repent dearly at the time of your exit from this physical plane. A person affected by leprosy who is in possession of this wealth, who is in touch with the Word and who is guided by it, is thousands of times better off than a person who has health, wealth, and worldly fame, but is not in contact with this immanent power. In this world, our plight is truly pitiful. We are blind. We are in a dark lane. We do not know our true goal. We are severely alone. We carry a heavy load of sins on our heads. The situation can undergo a change for the better only when we meet a saint who bestows upon us the treasure of divine wisdom, the gift of the Word, the hand of eternal friendship. Darkness then gives way to light. The royal road to our destination becomes wide open. The transcendent effulgence lights it brilliantly all the way. We become conscious of this and confident that our steps are in the right direction. We have a constant companion to guide us. And above all, our load lightens in a surprising manner. All of us have burning within us an everlasting flame, which requires no oil and no wick. It gives out light without ceasing. But this flame we can discern only with the help of the saints. They point out to us that this flame does not exist in the 9 apertures of the body. It is met with only above the eyes. One has to withdraw the body currents to the eye focus before one can come face to face with this flame, which forever dispels the darkness of ignorance and the gloom that overshadows the phenomenal world. Speaking of this flame, Jesus Christ said, "If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light." From within this flame echoes the divine melody, which descends from the house of the Lord and purifies all that falls within its orbit. Just as gold is rid of all its impurities by repeated melting, so does a heavily coated soul become completely pure and transparent as a result of constant contact with the Word. The Word combines both light and sound. The sound is meant to determine the direction from which it comes, and the light to enable us to travel toward it. All religions embody these 2 symbols. In the Hindu temples, they use a bell or conch and lights. In churches, high above the roof hangs a bell, and candles are lit inside. The Muslims put lights on their tombs, and their clergy call from a minaret to awaken people to remembrance of the Lord. These symbols were meant to serve as reminders to us that both light and sound are to be met within, and it is with their help that the inner path is to be followed and the destination reached. When the mind and soul currents contact the sound and enter the refulgent region, their direction is reoriented. Their outgoing tendencies change to inward ones. They begin to travel upward, using the sound as a ropeway, as it were. When the mind joins its source in triquity, it forever leaves the company of the soul, which then awakens for the first time to the realization that it is entirely different from the mind and the body which enclosed it, that both these coverings were merely accretions gathered during its descent, that it is made of the same substance as the Lord. It is then seized with a great longing and rushes forward to meet its Lord. When this happens, salvation is attained while living in this body. Giving up the filth of the world, the soul begins to live on the purest of pearls. Escaping from its age-old confinement, it forever gains the freedom of the skies. All this results when we are fortunate enough to join the company of a true adept and carry out his teaching, withdrawing to the eye focus, and there contacting the Word. So long as one searches for the word without, one can never succeed in finding this priceless jewel. When a thing is lost within the house, how can our looking for it in the street ever be of any help? By running without, we simply waste our time and suffer unnecessary privations. Like a deer which holds musk in its own navel but runs around the forest to find it, we keep looking outside ourselves and search for this inheritance everywhere else save within ourselves. The result is that we fail to find it and thus depart from this life empty-handed. Persons of great wealth in our own right, we remain beggars all our lives. Like a thief who leaves his own house and breaks into the houses of others, who is caught and is first punished severely by the householders, then by the police authorities, and ultimately serves a term in jail, we also suffer repeated births and rebirths, and ever remain in suffering and privation, moving from one cell to another in this vast honeycomb of life. Our mistake is that instead of knocking at our own door, the eye focus, we go and knock at the doors of temples and mosques, at forest retreats and mountain caves, to discover the indwelling Lord. We are beggars only through ignorance of the wealth that lies buried in ourselves. Bika Sahib says, "None is poor, O Bika. Everyone has got rubies in his bundle, but how to open the knot he does not know, and therefore is a pauper." However, when we become tired of running from pillar to post, of constantly going into one blind alley after another, none of which shows any way of escape from going through millions of different lives, each more miserable than the other, we turn to saints and godmen. They redeem us forever. We end the agonizing wheel of birth and rebirth. We merge in our source. The drop becomes the ocean. The saints bring about this transformation by making us vacate our body and mind. The former by withdrawing our consciousness to the third eye, and the latter by putting it into the orbit of the Word. When this happens, the Word pulls this consciousness up as a magnet draws iron filings to it. The mind reaches its home, and the soul, freed from its coverings of body, mind, and other accretions, moves forward to fulfill its great destiny of reaching the mansion of the Lord. When both body and mind are vacated, the all-pervading, the all-seeing, the all-knowing power takes charge of the soul and takes it to its primeval source of light, life, and bliss. The only way to step out of the karmic web is to join our consciousness with the Word. All else keeps us in the domain of the negative power, where its agents, the mind and Maya, allow us no respite or rest. They keep us ceaselessly in the labyrinth of birth and death. Therefore, devotion to the Word is absolutely essential. It is this that is our real task in this world. It is this alone that matters. It is this alone that stands us in good stead. All saints are unanimous in saying that in the 9 portals of the body there flow the sense pleasures with their pairs of opposites, joy and sorrow, health and sickness, riches and poverty, honor and dishonor. Unalloyed bliss flows in the 10th portal, the eye focus, which is the gateway to the Lord's mansion. Many saints have referred to it as the gateway of salvation. At this point, there resounds ceaselessly Nam, or the Word, and it is by this unfailing sign that the point is recognized. Whether one is a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Sikh, one has first to discover this point, and then alone can one catch hold of the divine melody. This, however, cannot come about by one's own efforts, no matter how hard and for how long one tries. The need for a teacher who can show us the way, who can guide us through the narrow places and over difficult terrain, who can be our constant companion throughout our journey, is imperative. We actually stand in need of a teacher the moment we are born. There is no profession in the world that we can master without a teacher. How then can we ever succeed by ourselves in this difficult subject of spiritual science? Its requirements are far more exacting, and the need for a teacher is far more urgent. The teachers of the spiritual science enable us to collect our consciousness behind the eyes and connect it with the Word. The result is that the mind finds its lost home, and the soul, which was completely dismayed in the wilderness of mind and Maya, discovers itself, and realizing its omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence, returns to its source. All world religions teach the same one basic truth. They all blaze the same one trail. They all give the same one message. They all reveal the same one reality. This reality is that without joining the consciousness with Nam, or the Word, which lies hidden in the human body, one can succeed neither in dispelling the darkness of ignorance, nor in attaining the Lord, nor in ending the cycle of birth and rebirth. It is only when we leave the leaky boat of the mind and step onto the strong and seaworthy ship of the Word that we escape the perils of the deep and reach the haven of safety. Human life is a great boon bestowed upon us by the Lord, but its sole purpose is to regain our lost heritage and once again merge into the flame of which we are a spark. Saints repeatedly tell us that this human life has a short span. It is given to us for a short while. We dwell in it temporarily. It is a rented house which sooner or later must be vacated. Therefore, every moment of it should be spent in the pursuit of God realization. We must never forget that our life is like a paper bag that a few drops of water could destroy. It is like a piece of thin glass that a little gust of wind could shatter. It is like a goat skin filled with air floating on a river, which would sink to the bottom if the air should go out of it. It is like a wall of sand that may collapse at any moment. Therefore, do not merely build castles in the air, but start building them on the ground. Every breath is precious, for once lost, it can never return. Make hay while the sun shines. Take advantage of this human body, so long as it lasts, and search for the one, without whom the entire world is going adrift and astray. Nobody, however, can succeed in this purpose unless he takes refuge in the saints. Only then can one know the secret of human life and fulfill its great destiny. Only then can one discover what a wondrous treasure the human body holds and how it can be gained. The great Lord has locked this priceless treasure within all human beings and has handed the key over to the saints, and they alone know how to unlock this mystery. It is only when this great secret is disclosed that one comprehends how the Lord is manifest in some and hidden in others, and how the hidden can be made manifest. It is only then that we see him everywhere, in every leaf, in every grain, in every particle of sand, and realize that nothing can ever happen without his will. The entire creation and its motivation are his dispensation. He is the doer behind all scenes. He is the player behind all games. He is the one who pulls the strings of the puppets behind all puppet shows. To comprehend this one is the aim of human life. Therefore, seek the company of saints. Learn the technique of withdrawal, and contact Nam, or the Word, in order to know, to comprehend, and to realize the one Lord of all, and forever merge in him.